I'm bored, let's watch Eric July. So the title of this video is Why I Stopped Doing Reviews. This should be really good. Let's get into it.
Feel like I'm doing this video like every other week, but a lot of folks ask me about my opinions on various properties or new media that's out there, especially during shows like Ripping the Silverback. We appreciate you viewers every week, don't get me wrong. But why did I stop doing reviews? Now, my last review.
I am curious if anybody out there watches his podcast with I don't watch it, but if anybody does watch it, what do they talk about? Like, what's the topic of conversation over there? If you're not watching movies and TV shows regularly, like it's not something you're doing for content, then what is the discussion about? Is it literally just talking about Rippaverse stuff? Rippaverse stuff and headlines. Is that all they do? So they're not actually engaging anything. I know Az still plays games, but is Az watching all this stuff? Is he going to the movies and watching this stuff? I don't even know. I can't imagine what the conversation is. Like, if I had someone on my podcast, I run a podcast twice a week, the Nerdcast, here on my channel. If I had someone on my podcast that wasn't watching TV shows or movies or playing these games or anything, and I had them on as a guest, what is the point? What is the point? According to Eric, he stopped watching this stuff. He stopped supporting it. So if you're not doing that, then what is the podcast about? Is it just complaining about headlines?
Review that I did on my YouTube channel, I believe, was in 2021. It might have been like the Snyder Cut.
So for like 3-4 years, you haven't been watching stuff and reviewing it? And you're still doing a pop culture podcast?
The history of the Justice League and all of that. I believe that was the final one around that time.
All right.
Now, there's two big reasons why I stopped doing reviews.
Two.
One being the obvious, right? That was around the time where I was really starting to move forward with the Rippaverse, okay? So my time just simply didn't have it anymore.
That's a fair excuse. Like, look, there's no way to... We know that he's been working with his Rippaverse stuff. Like, that's obvious. But, I mean, if he was to say that's the reason he didn't have time to do anything else, I get it. I'm not going to say that's a lie. I don't know better. But that's one of two reasons why. So I want to see what the second reason is. Like, if your main reason is I work too much, I don't think you need a second reason. I don't think we need additional reasons why. If it's like, I just don't have the time because I'm working a lot, I think everybody would understand that. That seems to me like that's a pretty obvious reason. So the fact that you're like, I have two reasons. So on top of working too much, there's an additional reason why that has nothing to do with the fact that you can't make more than 24 hours in a day. Like, you've got a finite amount of time that you can do things. That would be the ultimate reason. So you're leading in with that one. So I'm curious what the second one is.
And I was dedicating that towards my own like material, right? Coming up with these new characters, building out this universe Bible as well.
Derivative. Coming out with derivative characters. Matter of fact, he's got a speedster now called Blue Shift that looks like Wally West, a mix of Wally West and Godspeed and several other speedsters. It literally same hair color, same style cowl, named Blue Shift. Zephyr's his name or whatever. Apparently, Blue Shift is another speedster from another indie comic creator. So it's derivative times 2. It is derivative of the Flash in DC, and it's derivative of somebody else. Well, it's not even derivative. He's literally ripped the name off. So there's that. Anyway, let's continue.
Nice. Number one. So that was a big part of it. Okay. And, you know, time is the most precious resource that you have. And man, in starting my own company, you know, I really realized how scarce it really is, right? It's just only so much time in the day, and there's so much that you have to do.
You know what I find really interesting is one of the things that he would harp on a lot when it came to Marvel, DC, any of these other companies, is that why are they not doing more quality control? Why is it they can't do X, Y, Z? These are companies. They have customers. They should respect the customers by making sure that everything that's going out is good. All the movies are 10 out of 10. All the comic books are 10 out of 10. All the video games are 10 out of 10. He's had multiple issues with his comics over the last couple of years with just problems after problems after problems. But still, he's saying he's dedicating all of his time or most of his time towards that. And we're still having problems. It's almost like now that you're doing this, now that you're making comics, now that you're doing something that you've trashed other people for doing, they're doing a bad job of it, you understand how much work goes into it behind the scenes. It's almost like now that you're on that side of it, now it sort of makes sense. Now it's all coming together in your brain.
Especially if you have these big ambitions. Now, the other reason, though, is professionalism.
Oh. So the second reason is professionalism. We're keeping track of how many reasons it is. So first one is not enough time. You can't make more time than 24 hours a day, and he was dedicating the majority of his time to his company, which number one, I can't fault him for that, but number two, it makes sense. I'm not going to say that, again, there's anything wrong with that. Professionalism. So he's talking about like being a professional in the industry, whether it's the independent comic book industry, whether it's in the comic book industry, whether it's in the entertainment industry. That's what he's saying, professionalism. Let's rewind that. He's saying that's the second reason, professionalism. I cannot wait to hear what he has to say about this.
Scarce it really is, right? It's just only so much time in the day, and there's so much that you have to do, especially if you have these big ambitions. Now, the other reason, though, is professionalism.
Okay.
Now, I do appreciate, again, don't get me wrong, all the folks that have come to my channel or found out about me because of those long reviews that I used to do, whether it be on comic books or it was movies, whatever it may be, some positive, some not so much.
So what happened to respect the customer, right? You want to give the customers what they want. This is one of the cornerstones of the Rippaverse. It's one of the cornerstones of Eric's work ethic, if you want to call it that people should just give the customers what they want. We're finding out now, based on you had like 518,000 subscribers. Now you're down to 490,000 subscribers. So you've lost a ton of subscribers because they're coming to your channel looking for that stuff and you're not giving it to them. And so what happened to respect, because they're consumers of your media. Some of them are paid subscribers. Some of them might be people who dedicate a lot of time watching your content, therefore contributing to ad revenue. You said time is very precious. You just said that a second ago. So time being precious is a commodity. They're dedicating time to watching your channel. What happened to respecting the customer and giving them what they want? Does that not exist when it comes to your YouTube career? Because you wouldn't say, I'm not just a YouTuber. You know, I own a company, whatever. But you're actively using YouTube as a platform for every facet of your business. So I would say, if you're going to do that, why not just go through and private all those videos, unlist all those videos, so that people won't stumble upon your channel finding content that you're no longer making? If this is such a big problem for you, you're making a video about it, so I'm assuming it's a big problem for you. You could just make those videos private, make them members only, whatever it is, to prevent people from stumbling upon that content and thinking that's what you're making anymore if you're not planning on making it. It really is that simple.
And while I appreciate everybody, I totally understand that when you start your own comic book company, there is a level of professionalism that you have to maintain. It doesn't mean that you can be, or you have to be opinionless, right? I of course, I'm going to give my opinions. And it doesn't mean I can't like talk about things, but having it be like a main, let's say, form of content that I'm creating just is very unprofessional.
Hold on. What's unprofessional about that? The only reason you would say it's unprofessional to give your opinion on movies and TV shows and stuff, as someone who is making that kind of content, be it comic books and cartoons or whatever, the only reason that would be unprofessional is if you're doing it unethically. Okay? If you're making the content and the intent of the content is just to be a slop content creator where you're just making shit to go out there to get in the algorithm and make money off of it, that would be unethical and therefore unprofessional. But if you are doing something, going into it with doing it earnestly, doing it with the intention to be honest about your reviews, there's nothing unprofessional about that. Okay? It just isn't. If you want to be a content creator that makes like comic books and cartoons, but you still want to do a podcast where you talk about your opinions on comics and cartoons, you should be able to do that without fear of any sort of like issue if you're doing it with your best foot forward. You're doing it with honesty. The only reason it would be unprofessional is if people could tell beyond a shadow of a doubt that what you're doing is disingenuous. That would equal unprofessional. So you're telling on yourself here. You're telling on yourself. You're saying that you know the content you were making before was unprofessional. The only difference is now you are in the industry that you were criticizing. That's what you're saying. That the unprofessional nature only applied once you became an owner of your own business. Meaning if you never did that, you would have continued to be unprofessional about making content, unethical, disingenuous. You would have continued to do that. There's more to this, though. We'll speak more on that as we get through the video. I have a theory or a speculation about what's actually going on here. So let's go a little bit further before I start talking about that.
Because what are you really telling your audience when you're focusing on other people's stuff more than your own? So it just really doesn't make sense for me to do that, especially in the comic book or comic book based media like movies and things of that nature. Just really doesn't make any sense. And I'm again going back to the first thing I talked about with the time. Like, I'm not even going to view a lot of that stuff. I'm uninterested totally, not necessarily because, well, what they're putting out doesn't interest me. There's a role there. That kind of was the first reason why I was like, look, man, why am I doing?
So that's another reason. So that's a third reason. So there's three. Now we have three reasons. The third reason is because you're not really interested in the content anymore. Now that one is subjective. You can totally say, I don't want to watch this stuff anymore, walk away from it, and that's fine. I have no issue with that. Most of the people that have been critical of you would have no issue with that. Matter of fact, I would prefer if people that hate something so much that they just can't stand to watch it anymore would walk away from it. That's not only healthier for you as an individual, it's also healthier for the fandom. Because then we don't have to deal with this shit, right? So that would be better. I would actually prefer people to do that. So this is a third. So now we're at a third reason why you're doing this. But now it makes me wonder even more, like, why are you still doing streams with Az then? If you are truly uninterested in this stuff and you're not watching or you're not keeping up with it and you find it unprofessional, why are you streaming with Az? More on that in a moment.
This every single week to myself. But on the other hand, it's like, I'm happy about where we're at with the Rippaverse and the direction that we're going and creating that original content, everything pertaining
derivative content. There's very, very little originality. Very little originality in the Rippaverse.
To the business. Doing all that stuff not only takes time, but it's something that's therapeutic for me. You hear me use that term a lot. It's fun. It's far more fulfilling for me than like covering other people's stuff. Again,
so derivative or not, I truly believe that if you are someone that wants to actually create something, it is more beneficial for you to go out and do that. That's a good thing to do. If like you are so tired of seeing the other stuff and you really believe you can do something better, I would say take the risk on it. Now, I would argue that Eric's comic books are not. They're derivative. They're garbage content. There's really not much good in that from what I've seen. I haven't read every single issue of Rippaverse, but from the stuff that I have seen, it's just not good stuff. Again, subjective. There's a lot of subjectivity there. There's some objective problems like issues in printing and mistakes that were made and stuff like that. But overall, I just find it to be derivative, low intelligence content. It just is. It doesn't matter how many A-listers or how many Chuck Dixons he throws in there. It doesn't matter. It's just not good stuff. However, if he feels therapeutic about it and he's got a niche audience that wants to buy it, that's on him.
Positively or negatively for that matter. So if I want the company to be in the best spot that it realistically can be in, it makes all the sense in the world for me to like not be, doing that kind of content.
Okay, so now it's time for me to jump in and continue on that thought that I was on earlier with this. So let me roughly translate for you what's happening here. Eric lost the opportunity to work with certain writers and artists because of some controversy that happened a few months back. If you remember, he was going to be working with another company that was going to be supplying artists and writers and stuff for him so he could get out more content. He had to pivot on that because apparently they decided not to work with him because of how controversial his channel was. And so I said back then that clearly something happened where they went back and they saw some of his older content and they were like, we don't want to work with this person because of all the controversial stuff that he makes. He acted like it wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal. So what I believe here, this is my speculation on this, is that Eric now is in a position where he knows there's a lot of people that don't want to work with him, right? He knows there's a lot of people in the industry that don't want to work with him, and he needs to expand and do something with his business because his sales have been down pretty much for the last year or so. They've been like going lower or getting a few bumps here and there, but overall not where it was like 2 years back. You guys can get in the comments and be like, oh, he's making more money. It doesn't matter. Individually, through each issue, he's having issues with each issue. He's having issues with this. He needs to get more people on board with him at a higher quality so he can start making better books. And that's going to mean mingling and bumping elbows with people in the industry that probably wouldn't have given him any attention prior to this. They wouldn't even thought about him. So now he has to sort of change the way he is running his channel. This is why you're seeing less and less of him criticizing Marvel and DC and Disney in videos because he wants that to sort of go away. The shift on his channel happened almost immediately after those people decided not to work with him. He never said who they were. Whoever it was decided not to work with him. The shift on his channel happened, and he hasn't been doing stuff like that for a while. He's done political stuff, but he's kind of stayed away from criticizing other people in the industry. This is something that someone does when they are trying to make moves in business, or bidness, as Eric says. Trying to make moves so that they make their brand more appealing, so they can get more people on board with them. More people want to work with them. As someone who's owned my own business for 30 years, there are times where you're like, do I need to concede and change things in order to make myself more appealing to work in this facet of the industry? Whether, for me, it would be like working with weddings, doing parties, doing special events, things like that. What do you do with your brand to make that work for you? And that's what Eric is doing here. As I said before, with the unlisting and privating his videos, I would not be surprised if we see like a sharp rebrand from Eric, where a lot of that content does go behind some sort of a paywall or locked away, privated on his channel, where he tries to like move away from that content altogether, like get it off his channel altogether. There's another thing I want to mention about this rebranding, but let's hear what he has to say a little bit more before I get into that, because I have some thoughts on other aspects of the Rippaverse and Rippasend
out there. Because look, I got, employees. We got to keep this thing moving, right? So
right.
Again, my time is better suited for that. And the time that I don't dedicate towards like the business and things like that, I'm putting towards my family.
Right.
So it just doesn't really make sense for me to do that. Yes, I have like.
So like a fourth-ish reason why you have employees. So it's a fourth-ish reason why. Like it was 2, kind of 4. Okay.
The hobbies of video gaming and doing stuff like that, though, if I was to return and doing a review every now and then, that's kind of, I think, the genre, right? It'd be less comic book stuff and more like doing like video game reviews, like I did with Cyberpunk and stuff like that. Right. Obviously, it's an industry that I would love to get in, but
reviews aren't inherently unprofessional, because you're saying you could do reviews of stuff of industries you're not in, right? So now we're down to like, we're splitting what he said earlier in terms of like time and stuff. So it's not just the time thing or the unprofessional thing. It's like he could do other stuff, but he's just, he finds other reasons not to. Like he's got to make sure his employees are paid. So wasting time doing video game reviews would take away from that. Like it's just like, it's almost like none of this even really matters. It literally is just an issue where he doesn't want to dedicate time to it, which is absolutely fine. But I feel like this is also him speaking to someone. Like he's saying this for someone else. I don't know who it is, but there's someone else out there he's trying to hit with this. Some other person that he's trying to tap into. Maybe it is the group that kind of turned him away. Maybe they're like, oh, well, if we see that you are making changes to your content, maybe then we would come back and work with you. Maybe that's who he's talking about.
We're not in. Maybe it makes a little more sense. And plus, on my downtime, like if I'm not doing anything, right, I'm generally gaming if I'm not doing something pertaining to the business, which again, it's not often, but that's where my free time, if you will, is going. So, again, I just want people to put that into perspective, because I do understand that people were out there. There were people out there that valued my, I guess, perspective, especially on comic book stuff, because I was knowledgeable on like the source material.
Were you though? I distinctly remember at least 1 or 2 videos where it's very obvious that you're not knowledgeable on the source material. I think most people know what I'm talking about. I would say that's probably not the reason why. The reason why people liked your content, like if I had to sort of, from an outsider perspective looking in, I think the reason why people liked your content is because you were confirming their own opinions about stuff. You were saying the stuff that they think, and so they felt validated. That's probably the reason why.
So I get it. I get it. It's like, hey, I would love to know how that guy felt about the Superman film or the new whatever film. And it's like, is that really professional of me to do that? Probably not.
Why? You're not in the filmmaking industry. If it were just comic books or cartoons to some degree, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. But you're not making feature films. So why would that be unprofessional? This is where I want to kind of jump back into what I was thinking earlier. So you're saying that it's unprofessional, right? That you find that kind of behavior incompatible with what you're doing at the Rippaverse. Yet, if I go to Rippasend right now, one of the biggest things you're selling is the Nerdrotic book. And Nerdrotic is an extension of the Rippaverse through Rippasend. You're publishing it. And his channel, his entire channel, is dedicated to something that you just said was unprofessional. You just called it unprofessional. Critical Drinker, somebody else you've worked with, made an entire movie, wants to be a filmmaker, but yet he spends all of his time criticizing movies and TV shows, something you've just deemed unprofessional. Matter of fact, you have several people writing for Rippaverse, not just Rippaverse, including Az and Maul3r, who both spend a bunch of their time doing the exact thing that you called unprofessional. And they are representatives of your brand. So where do you draw the line on this? Where is the line on professionalism in the context of the Rippaverse? Does it only apply to you? Are you the sole person that like, because you're the person that owns the company, is it your professionalism that matters, the only one? Or is it the people that work for your company? Does their professionalism matter? Because they are now people that are contributing to the Rippaverse. You've got an anthology book where several people attached to that book are the exact thing that you just described as unprofessional. And they work for you in some capacity because they contributed to that. And Rippaverse also has people like YellowFlash and Nerdrotic who both are also doing something that you just called unprofessional. So I'm just curious where that standard is. Where does that standard land for you in all of this? Just curious.
Again, while I'm not saying that we're going to be some massive mega corporation actually that goes against kind of what we want to do.
Which, wait, hold on. Hold on. Is this, wait a minute. Why would you even say that? Why would you even bring that up? Did someone accuse you of turning into a mega corporation? Or was that just a slip? Why would you say that? If I was running a company and it was a small business and there was an opportunity for me to expand in America, where that's the way business works, that's the way capitalism works, an opportunity for me to expand, you would expect that that's something I would want to do. Right? As a business owner, you want to, hopefully with integrity, expand your business. But you're saying it there like, was that even part of the conversation? Why I stopped doing reviews? Why would you say that? Let's hear that back.
Like, is that really professional of me to do that? Probably not. Again, while I'm not saying that we're going to be some massive mega corporation actually that goes against kind of what we want to do here at the Rippaverse. So I'm not saying that I'm like competing with these guys or on that level like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that obviously it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially for the owner of a company to be focusing so much on what someone else in their industry is doing. And
especially for the owner. So that's not saying solely the owner. So this answers a bit of my earlier question where we're like, does it only apply to Eric? Is he the only individual associated with the Rippaverse where this applies? It doesn't. He says especially the owner, meaning that he thinks that applies to anyone working in this facet of business with the Rippaverse. It should apply to anybody in this position, especially the owner. So you're employing a bunch of people that you just called unprofessional. That's interesting.
Customers pick up on that. I think it'd be weird. Like, why is he spending so much time talking about these other guys when doesn't he have his own comic book company? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, yeah.
So that are you going to give that advice to the people that work for you? Are you going to give that advice to Az, Maul3r, people that are now writing for you? Are you going to give that advice to them? Are you going to continue to put out content on Rippaverse with people that do that? Because the issue here is that if it does in fact reflect on you as an owner and your business, then all of those decisions are your decisions. The buck stops at you, especially the owner. So you're employing people that are doing things that you consider to be unprofessional. That's quite interesting, actually.
That's the reason why, or the reasons why I just doesn't make sense for me to do reviews. Like I said, I've done probably like already 4 versions of this same video, but people keep asking.
Do they keep asking about this? So it's really interesting. I'm going to wrap this up quickly because I kind of said everything I want to say. But the fact that Eric blurted out something about changing the company into some mega corporation just randomly, that feels really weird. The fact that he employs people who do the things that he just claimed are completely unprofessional is weird. It's actually fucking weird that you're publishing and employing people that are doing the very thing that you said is the second reason why you stopped doing reviews. This video is really strange. I'll be honest. I don't know why he felt the need to make a video about this. Just make your reviews private. Take them off your channel completely, and then you won't have people subbing to you because they stumbled upon a review of yours from 2020. Is the money that important? Are you still getting so much ancillary type funds off of those videos that you have to keep them up? Because you're not a YouTuber, according to you. Anyway, this is really weird. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What's this all about? Eric July calls YellowFlash, Nerdrotic, and Critical Drinker unprofessional. That's crazy.